This is a steal for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a brand new report has dropped, revealing a huge Leafs trade update as it pertains to one particular player. We're going to break that down and discuss what this means going forward, as this report is extremely intriguing. Stay tuned for a lot in this episode, but before we get into it, folks, quick reminder, if you're part of the 70% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been absolutely fantastic, so thank you guys for that as we continue to push towards our goal of 15,000 subscribers. We're getting very, very close. We might have already hit it by the time that this goes up, but if not, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if we did hit 15K, thank you guys very much. But there's a lot to go over today. News is flying like crazy, and obviously, one particular player is someone we've talked about a lot on this channel, but a new report has dropped this afternoon, and it really starts to pick a lot of things to pick up surrounding this player, and is Brandon Tanev, because it is official now. He is generating interest from cup contenders and bubble teams. He has a modified no trade. The word from teams around the league is that he would prefer to go into an upper echelon contender, the Leafs. Obviously, July 1st could be a different story as far as looking at potential fits elsewhere. So this screams Toronto Maple Leafs to me, and obviously Pierre LeBrun dropped this afternoon, and it is pretty big. It's a pretty big deal, and it's pretty big information here because not only is Brandon Tanev seemingly available, let's not forget the Leafs have Chris Tanev, and this could it'd be a perfect fit. And we've been talking about it for a while now, but seems like it just got a little bit more real with this report.
Not only this, not only what's in this tweet, but the fact that he's from here, like you just mentioned, Chris Tanev also plays on the team. His brother plays on the team. It sounds like for some reason, I guess Brad Treliving's plan this deadline is to go out and get all the brothers in the NHL to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So maybe that has something to do with it too. But no, I think that this player, if this is, something that they kind of pivot to, not even pivot to, it's been rumored for a while. We made a video on this before, and obviously Jamie Alexiak is another good option because we've kind of gotten away from talking about defensemen because, rumors right now are just around centermen. This is a good move. This is a guy who can help you win, right? And I feel like the asking price for a guy like this instead of, Scott Laughton or Braden Shen, like this would make a lot more sense because of how much he makes, his age, stuff like that, the fact that he wants to win, his brother's here, they're from here. So again, I think that this would make a lot more sense for the Leafs, but they have to fill in that third line center role. If they were to get this guy, maybe Alexiak and maybe one other trade, then that would be really, really good if they can make the salary cap work, of course. But again, I would love Brandon Tanev on this team. This is a guy who you can definitely win with. He plays the right way. At one point, he had the most block shots for any forward, and the most block shots for any defenseman was Chris Tanev in the NHL, I think about a week ago. So pretty cool stat there. But again, I think that this is a move that I would be interested in as long as the cost is low.
Yeah, and this is very interesting now because obviously, like you mentioned, you'd have to assume, love to be here, extend all these different things. And if wants to waive, and that's a big thing, right? He has his modified no trade clause. And that's the thing that will keep other teams out of the picture, and you'd have to assume he would waive that to come to the Toronto Maple Leafs. His brother plays in the team. It is an upper echelon contender. He would fit perfectly in the third line, depending where you want to pencil him in. You can see this here. A few names of particular interest here. One of them being Brandon Tanev. Tanev is a type of tenacious forechecker teams would love to add. His 3.5 million AV is a little rich for the role, but the Kraken should find any number of contenders interested. And that's the interesting part here. And you mentioned some of the stats as it pertains to Brandon and Chris. No NHL defenseman has more blocks than Chris. No NHL forward has more blocks than Brandon Tanev. Now, is he going to be the goal scorer that the Leafs are probably looking to add in that third line or fourth line, wherever you want to put him? Probably not, and his cap hit is a little bit higher. But if this is a part of, again, if their only move is Brandon Tanev, I would be quite disappointed. But if they get Brandon Tanev, and this is a part of a bigger move, whether that be a guy like Mikko Rantanen, Dylan Cousins' name has kind of cooled down, even Scott Laughton plus Brandon Tanev, it wouldn't be the most exciting trade deadline, but it would still, get the job done for some fans out there. I don't know, though, if getting Brandon Tanev alone would be enough to add some of the goal scoring they need in those later lines.
No, if you're looking at this year's trade deadline, I mean, Brandon Tanev would be a great piece to pick up, and I think he would help the Leafs. But if it's the only move that the Leafs are making, like, it doesn't make any sense because, you still have a hole at third line center. This guy would be a winger. But if you were to add at third line center, you were to add Brandon Tanev, and maybe you trade away Max Domi, for example. I feel like Brandon Tanev, and I love Max Domi, and I'm happy he's a Leaf, but he hasn't had a great season. And the Leafs need guys who are going to be effective in the playoffs for them. And Brandon Tanev is that type of guy there on the left wing. So we heard the Leafs were rumored to possibly get him to add at the left wing position on the third line as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch to see if Brad Treliving, is trying to make just one trade for multiple pieces, if he's trying to make multiple trades. Because again, like Jamie Alexiak's name is definitely in trade rumors around the league. There's a lot of teams invested in him too. He's a really big defenseman, 6'7", that could really help the Leafs too. And he can play the right or the left. So I think that, that's something to look, at too. Maybe the Leafs go out and make, a trade here where they get two pieces and then maybe they still look at a third line center. Maybe they trust Holmberg I don't know if I do. He's had a decent week and a half here, but don't know if I still trust him there at the third line center. But it's going to get very interesting. But again, I like Brandon Tanev. I feel like most Leaf fans would thumbs up a move like this because he's the type of person, the type of player that you can win with.
Yeah, and we're seeing trades start to go down across the NHL, whether that be the Rangers, the Avalanche. And rumors are really starting to pick up, and reports are starting to pick up as well as things start to get very interesting on that front. And again, his cap hit's 3.5 million. You'd have to move some guys out. Domi's fresh off of that 3-year extension. Maybe Brad Treliving is thinking, okay, maybe we prefer a guy like Brandon Tanev over Max Domi, clears up the spot to get him there, which is interesting. And looking at his projected obviously his cap hit percentage and all these different things, like it is a little bit steep given his production in this season. In 53 games has 9 goals and 8 assists. Not great, to be honest, but neither is, the stats Max Domi has been putting up either. He is a pending UFA, though, even though this is a rental. If the Leafs get him and decide that they like him, I cannot imagine a world where he wouldn't, sign here and extend here. Again, his brother's from here. His brother plays for the Leafs and is under contract for the next handful of seasons. So it is a very interesting player. And as you start to look at how he would fit here, I'll ask you, where do you think he would factor into the lines? And again, Domi's been playing in the third line. We've seen Pontus Holmberg play well. Nick Robertson's had some good games as well. Even Bobby McMahon has been obviously the biggest surprise, I'd say, for a lot of fans out there this season. Where would you see Brandon Tanev fitting, assuming the Leafs are able to get this deal done?
This is the Max Pacioretty insurance policy where you don't know if Max Pacioretty is going to be able to play. So I see him on the third line left wing. You move McMahon up in the playoffs again. I think Holmberg's been playing good with those two guys, Tavares and Nylander, but in the playoffs, you move McMahon up and then you put him on the third line 10 if that is. And I think you bring up a good point too about re-signing. You have to be careful, I think, to a degree, because the Leafs have been notoriously known for guys to come in at the end of their careers because they're from here and sign these contract extensions and all that, right? So, if he plays well, yes, definitely extend him. I think that he would take less to play here in Toronto as well, kind of like Wayne Simmons, guys like that. But, sometimes like Wayne Simmons at the end, it doesn't necessarily work out too well. There's other guys there, Nick Foligno, right? Like those types. So, you want to be careful of that. John Tavares is a different case. He's still a very effective player, and I would like to re-sign him if it's for the right dollar amount. But want to be careful of that. But I don't see a world where he comes in as a rental and he just walks, right? Like I think that he would probably want to resign if it makes sense for both parties. So not too worried about that. And it's probably coming at a lower dollar amount too. He is getting older. It'd probably be his last contract of his career. So something to look at that there too. You do want to be careful. But again, I think that he probably slots in on the third line left wing. And his production isn't great, but he's the type of guy that I think, if you need a goal in the playoffs and, the game is 1-1 and it's been that way the entire game, he's the type of guy that just, would crash the net or just make something happen, right? Like I feel like he's the type of guy like a McMahon too that might end up getting that goal if he's freed up because the top two lines kind of cancel each other out in the playoffs to a degree. So I think it could be a very interesting fit, that's for sure. And I could see him re-signing as well. So it depends on what the cost is because it has been quiet compared to, like Braden Shen or Mika Rantanen and stuff like that.
Yeah, and David Painada came out and said the Leafs want to add their second line, ideally at the dot, but they've also been asking around about big physical bottom six forwards, which Brandon Tanev certainly fits that bill. But let us know down below what your thoughts are. A ton of different reports coming out. We're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news, so make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you guys later.